cereals. Should we be eating them? Should our kids be eating them? What about the old hamburger? I've had the good fortune to interview some functional medical doctors and look through the research that they've pointed me to, and I found something pretty interesting. I'll come back to this slide in a second. But there's two research papers there that are quite fascinating. The first one is about cereals, and if you can see that box that I've got highlighted there, dietary phytoestrogens may be involved in the occurrence of chronic disease. Now, my friend Dr. Anthony said that a lot of these hardworking scientists have to use the word preface the whole statement with maybe because they don't want to be sued by these big cereal companies. But if they're putting this research out for us to look at, maybe we should be rethinking how good cereals are for us. So the second research paper is academic, okay, and three problems with cereals. Well, there's actually a lot more than that, and I'll show you that very shortly. So milk is addictive. We've got these receptors in our brain called opioid receptors, and inside milk, inside gluten, and inside soy, you've got these opioid peptides, and they bind to those receptors in our brain, and it makes us feel, right? And we're drawn back to it, so they're addictive. These opioid receptors are the same receptors that cocaine, morphine, and heroin hit as well. Certainly not as hard, but we're going back to them even though they don't taste great. Now, milk, for an example, newborn babies, they cry, right? They want to be fed. We have milk, right? So these peptides, these opioid peptides bind to the receptors in the baby's brain, your baby's brain, and it makes them feel, the opioid peptides, well, I feel good now. So it's an evolutionary gift for the mother, maybe the father, so that the baby stops crying very fast. And this is inside your milk. It's inside gluten. So all gluten products have these opioid peptides, and inside soy. So is it so good for us? Let's have a look at the next research paper. Dr. Anthony J, in his book Estrogeneration, we're being loaded with these estrogenic-like endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now we know that soy and wheat and milk are addictive, but what you mightn't know is, where I'm circling around here, you've got these mycoestrogens, which are not good for you. They push down on your estrogen receptor. And I'll speak to that and what that means shortly. But they've got these things called ZEA in them. They're in rice, bread, corn snacks, wheat flour. So they're kind of toxic. They've got chemicals that serve our body, that do not serve you at all. They should not be inside you. Then you've also got atrazine and glysulfate. So that's a 2 times load of these chemicals. And over here, you've got these things called APOs, and they're put in pesticide formulation. So you've got 3 times load. These chemicals are in your cereals. Can that be good for us? I'll leave that for you to decide. Should we be giving this to our kids? I'll leave that for you to decide. Every time our opioid receptors are lit up, that's not a good thing either. Think about addiction with morphine and cocaine. We're going back to these things. So for me, and when I do have grandchildren, which shouldn't be too far away, I'm certainly not going to be allowing my grandchildren to be eating this garbage, because as far as I'm concerned, it's shit. And another reason for that, Professor Waltman from MIT in this research paper says that when we're learning, which is called synaptogenesis, so basically you're creating these new dendrites for learning, we need 3 building materials in our brain right there and then for learning, for synaptogenesis, for the first outreach of intelligence. Now, if you feed your kids that shitty ass, dumb ass breakfast, you don't have that. You don't have those building materials. So your kids' learning is lowered. Now, genetics play into this certainly. If you've got elite genetics, not so much. You can get away with this. If you've got average genetics. However, if you've got crap genetics like me, you suffer. Your comprehension isn't great. Reading is hard. Learning is hard. But not emotional learning, intellectual learning, facts and figures and all those things. And this is dear to my heart because I was told by my teachers at school that I wasn't very smart and I should work with my hands. And that's absolutely true because my brain didn't have the building materials. One of the building materials that Professor Woltman says that you need, I lack. After I had my DNA read by Dr. Anthony J, I found out that the precursor to one of these building materials that comes in through nutrition, which isn't there on the left breakfast, right? That shitty cereal, but it is on the right, right? So the breakfast on the right there, it's got it in it. I wasn't eating like that. And the precursor, which is choline, my body turns the precursor choline into this active form for learning very slowly. So I wasn't getting it at all a lot of times, and I need to get double the amount of an average person. So my learning was severely handicapped because I didn't know this information. Could this be your child? Could this be you? Nutrition is extremely important, especially if you've got garbage genetics like me. Now, the second problem is the older we get, the worse it becomes. Eating this way. That research paper there, amplifiers of systemic inflammation, the role of advanced glycation and lip oxidization end products in food. So 5 points there. 1. So this is Western slave food, right? And I've got a video on that. It's in the Mark Iron method. I had the great opportunity to interview Dr. Ken Berry, and he spoke to this. That's on my podcast, and that's also on YouTube. You can check that out. But he called it slave food because it dulls us. And the older we get, the worse it becomes. And it certainly got worse for me. I experienced most of this. The first one, atherosclerosis, fortunately, I didn't. However, my father suffered from this. The second one, arthritis. I had 5 shoulder surgeries, severe arthritis. No longer do I have this. Pulmonary disorders, allergies, asthma. I had asthma. Had. Endocrine disorders. I had that too. It disrupts your whole 5 hormonal systems, this food. So you just get through the day. You know, your mood's up and down, your energy's up and down, you're all over the shop. And point number 5 there, it's 50 times more free radicals. Western slave food keeps us down, especially if you've got average genetics or, like me, garbage genetics. Next research paper here. Do you want to have your skin aging faster, your joints aging faster? Well, that's what these advanced glycation end products, in fact, do. So that's cereal. So we really need to rethink cereal, especially for our children, if you want them to perform at school. Recall earlier I mentioned that Professor Woltman from MIT said we need these 3 building materials in our brain for synaptogenesis, intellectual learning. But look what it causes here. So it ages our skin faster. It causes inflammation. It toughens proteins, so sore joints, arthritis, and it impairs hormones and many metabolic pathways like thyroid function. It screws up your LDL particles, LDL cholesterol, and it interferes with synaptic connections, your ability to think. So your brain slows down, ums and ahs. To do a presentation like this, I would have been shit out of luck if I was eating that food. And that's cereals. Let's now have a look at hamburgers. I love hamburgers. And there's 2 forms. You can get a form that's healthy for you, and you can have your standard old hamburger. Now, certainly you can have a standard old hamburger, but you can protect yourself from its wrath, from its inflammation, from its oxidative stress. And that's in fact what it will do. This research paper here, I found this from following a really smart scientist called Dr. James Di Nicolantonio. And it led me to this research paper, and I was blown away. I thought, crap, I can give this to my clients. This is fantastic. Because if you are out and you feel like a standard old hamburger on the weekend, you can protect yourself from it. This is really valuable information, right? So a Hass avocado modulates postprandial vascular reactivity. And that's not a good thing. Your arteries are going to tighten up. And postprandial inflammation. Now, inflammation is not good. Your mood and energy will start to lower, and you'll have cravings, and you'll feel like shit. You'll want to go home. You're sick and tired. You'll be looking at your phone. You'll be bored. You can't focus. Higher thinking is gone. So this research paper here, the first part of it, we observed significant vasoconstriction within 2 hours of eating a standard old hamburger. That's not a good thing. This is how someone with atherosclerosis can die of a heart attack. Tightening of the arteries, that's not a good thing. And also the brain suffers. It basically squeezes the blood out of the brain, so you don't have enough energy, enough blood in there to deliver nutrient-rich oxygenated blood for focus, for higher thinking. So a couple of hours after you have that hamburger, it's like, where'd my energy go? I just ate, right? Then you'll have cravings, and you'll think you'll need a coffee. But this is what's going on. We don't need anything else into the system. We need to clean the system up. We need to detox the system. However, that green part I've highlighted there, it did not occur when you added avocado. Yes, right? I mean, these hardworking scientists are giving people like you and me this information so we can hack the system, biohack the system. Now the second part there, 4 hours later, right? So after you eat that hamburger, IL-6, which is interleukin 6, inflammatory metabolite, okay? So it significantly rose 4 hours later. However, with the avocado, there was no change. No change. And the last part there that I've got highlighted in green, these observations, I'll just read straight from it. These observations are suggestive of beneficial anti-inflammatory and vasculature health effects of ingesting the avocado on a standard old shitty hamburger that screws you over. So thank goodness for these hard-working scientists, right? They're giving us hacks. They're showing us where these crappy foods are that slow us down, our mood up and down, our energy all over the place. Thank goodness for these hard-working scientists. Now, this is extremely important, so pay close attention to this. You want to have high testosterone. You want to have high DHEA, thyroid support. Well, this research paper here gleans massive insights, right? So if you've got high cortisol, if you've got estrogenic-like endocrine disrupting chemicals, or if you've got oxidative stress or mental stress and inflammation, you're wasting your testosterone. This research paper here, as you can see, what's going to happen when any of that is true, it's going to take your androgens, like DHEA, wasted as well, not just testosterone, androstenedione, you've got dihydrotestosterone, testosterone, all your androgens. Let me just pause here for a moment. This is extraordinarily important for women too, testosterone and DHEA. So we don't want to waste it and turn it into estrogen. Okay? So when any of that is true, all your androgens are worked on by this enzyme called aromatase. Now, aromatase transforms testosterone or DHEA into estrogens. When any of those three things are true, stress, whether it's oxidative stress or mental stress and inflammation, you've got these estrogenic-like endocrine disrupting chemicals in your amazing body that your mum and your dad gifted you with, and you've got high cortisol. So you're wasting your testosterone. And what does testosterone do? It gives you feelings of optimism and confidence. And it significantly lowers fear and anxiety. This is ideal. What does DHEA do? This is being wasted too. Dihydroepiandrosterone. What does that do? It gives you feelings of well-being, warm-heartedness, caring, courage, and vigor. So you feel like you can take the day on. And any of those three things are wasting all those critical androgens for confidence, for taking the day on, for you playing a bigger game. And just to put a final nail in the coffin, I guess you could say, of these shitty breakfasts and carbs and wheat and all that crap, this research paper here is quite revealing. Glucose-induced oxidative stress. So when glucose is too high for too long, you've got oxidative stress. And the older you get, the worse it becomes. So you really need to think about what you're putting inside your amazing body, especially the older you become, because sore joints, headaches, loss of focus, energy ups and downs shouldn't be something that you want to shoot for. And I know it's difficult because these foods are toxic. They change one of your 5 hormonal systems in a very negative way. I've got another video on this called Omega Wars, but in a nutshell, all Western food has lots and lots of omega-6 in it and very little omega-3. And this leads to an unbalance of these omega hormones. So these fatty acids that you're eating are coming into the system, and they are incorporated into all of your cells, every single one of them. And when you've got too much omega-6, you've got too much inflammation, you've got too much oxidative stress, serotonin is depleted, which you need for higher thinking, but I won't dive into that now. But as you can see on this research paper here, it changes your endocannabinoids, and your endocannabinoids make you have cravings for sweet things. It gives you leptin resistance, insulin resistance. And I've got another video on this. It's called Omega Wars, and it's in a playlist on YouTube. So if you want to check that out, do that. But as you can see here, you can start selecting for different, what I call, building materials. So you're protected. But you can also hack the system with a Hass avocado, but you have to know how to do this, and I certainly can't explain that all now. I've got a blueprint and a cheat sheet, and if you want access to that, I've got information below about how to grab that, because at the end of the day, what I coach is better hormones, better game. What you've got to do is get off autopilot, being drones, as I talked about at the beginning of it, and move across to winning in all areas of life, because hormones control that. DHEA, feelings of warm-heartedness, caring, courage, and vigor. Testosterone, confidence, optimism, and it significantly lowers feelings of fear and anxiety. So it gives you an unfair advantage. But if you're over this side, because you've got poor nutrition coming into your body, and add to that, you're like me, you've got garbage genetics, it's really difficult to have constant mood and energy. If you've liked this, give it a thumbs up and comment below if you'd like more information about anything I've talked about here today. I'm here to help. I'm a performance coach. My name is Mark Iron, and as my coach told me, and you can bank on this, if you're having any more than a couple of off days a month, you're doing something wrong. Your hormones are disrupted. 5 hormonal systems you've got to optimize for. You've got a lot of power. You have a lot of power. And if you want to unleash that power, I can help. There should be information below on that. But, if you're sick of playing a small game, you have to realize what I just mentioned about hormones, how they make you feel. They help you play a bigger game. Not be worried about what other people think. So there it is. If you've liked this, I'd appreciate your support. Give it a thumbs up and comment, because it really helps me out. Okay, there it is.